have I evolved? Props not. So my lovely friend and the brilliant creator Jack over at Spread Book Joy created a new tag quite recently, the evolution of a reader. And this is very much a sort of waffly tag where you get to understand where I come from as a reader, where I started, why I am where I am now. There are 4 key sort of questions, but I expect this will be somewhat of a chatty, waffly video. So if that is not your jam, then choose another video. But yeah, let's just talk about reading in general. So the first question is, how has my taste in books evolved? And so I suppose when I was a kid, I was very much a fantasy reader. The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, the Redwall series, Chronicles of Narnia, obviously She Who Will Not Be Named on BookTube. And so very much that dominated my reading, probably all the way through primary school, high school and into sixth form. At the sort of point where I was at sixth form and university, I suppose I moved more towards sort of historical fiction, and then sort of as I discovered BookTube and started my own channel, I have very much been leaning towards literary fiction. I would say throughout my reading I've read classics to a greater or lesser degree, but I'm certainly finding that I'm focusing more on them now. I am very interested to go back and see like how writing has evolved, particularly over the last year. I have read a few classic sci-fi novels, and I really like sort of seeing in those how modern sci-fi and dystopian novels have sort of taken their inspiration from the likes of Arthur C. Clarke, Philip K. Dick, George Orwell. And so really hasn't made an appearance in a while, has he? Say hello. And so yeah, my reading is constantly evolving, and I'm starting to understand sort of what I do like and what I don't like a little bit more, but I am pretty much always up for trying something new. Sorry if you can hear this big ginger snuffly pig in the background. And so the next question is, how has the format of your reading changed? Apologies that this is now the situation we're in. Hello. So if you watch sort of my wrap-ups and my TBRs, you will know that I do read quite a lot of audiobooks, quite a lot of ebooks. I would say I probably went for a stage where I read a lot more ebooks than physical books, just because they were easier to transport, and I still find that I probably do read more on a page-by-page basis on ebook than I do with physical books. For audiobooks, I very much was one of these people back in the day that was like, an audiobook isn't a real book. I don't still have that opinion, clearly. But it really clicked for me when I changed job. When was that? When I moved to a home-based role, i.e. a car-based role, when I probably about 8 years ago, and I was spending a lot of time on the road, hours and hours and hours a week on the road, and I was like, this is just such dead time, and I picked up an audiobook, and since then it's been sort of life-changing, because I still spend a lot of hours on the road, and it just allows me to consume more material, and I feel like that time then isn't wasted when I'm driving. I also listen to audiobooks when I'm walking this big ginger ninja, and it's good for him because he gets longer walks, because quite often I'm like, oh, I need to know what happens. We'll go for the long loop. We'll go around both villages today. So yes, I very much enjoy an audiobook these days, though obviously it has to be a good one. There's nothing worse than a bad audiobook. Okay, so the next one is quite a lot of questions in one question. So how much do you read? Let's take that first. And do you read more or less than previously? I'm reading more now than I have ever read. I think for a lot of people, it sort of started in lockdown. I found that I had a lot more downtime, and I actually discovered a couple of Facebook groups, and I will probably be doing a video on one of these soon, which is the 52 book club challenge. 52 book challenge. So where this Facebook group comes up with 52 prompts each year, and you try and achieve them. So that's one book a week. There was another similar one, the monthly book club, which does a similar thing but with less prompts. I think it has like 31 prompts or something. And that sort of got me into sort of exploring my reading a bit more, looking a bit more widely, and so my reading just like shot up. And then as soon as I started BookTube, which is sort of the next question, but as soon as I started BookTube, it just skyrocketed. So I certainly read a lot more now than I have ever read before. What do you read? We've already sort of discussed that, but I will read pretty much anything. I know that I don't like romance. I don't like it in my life, and I don't like it in my reading. Public displays of affection make me want to vomit, and so I'm just not there for romance. But pretty much anything else I will give a go. I can find YA a little bit irritating as well, particularly when it's YA romance, for the same reasons. Has how often you read changed? Clearly, I just read more. I find more pockets of time. I find that I don't really watch any telly. I occasionally get sucked into like a series and binge watch it when I have time, but I have very little telly time, so I tend to read instead of watching telly these days. So yeah, that's sort of how that's changed. If you can hear Rudy like purring in the background, that's what that is. It's not oh dear. Okay, and so the last question is, how has BookTube changed you as a reader? It has changed me, I think, predominantly for the good. Maybe there's a few negatives to it, but as I said before, it is making me read more. I definitely read wider. I read a lot more literary fiction. I read books that I definitely wouldn't have picked up before because I'm following all of the book prizes, but predominantly the Women's Prize, and this year the Booker Prize. So I don't know if I'll do that next year because it hasn't been super successful this year. So my reading has changed in that regard. I also buddy read all the time now. So before I started BookTube, I had never buddy read a book. I think me and my mum read the same book in a month once and discussed it, and that was as close as I got to a buddy read. But now, as you will probably know from my TBRs, I have at least 2 every month, and I feel a bit weird. I would feel a bit weird if I didn't have one. I was speaking to Alice the other day, and she said that she didn't have a single buddy read planned for November, and I was like, oh, I don't think that's ever happened to me. So yeah, I absolutely adore buddy reads, whether it's a good book or a bad book. I just love talking about it with people, though I do need to sort of rein it in a bit because sometimes I feel like it dictates my whole reading life, which I suppose is one of the downsides to how BookTube has changed my reading. It has made it quite prescriptive. It's quite sort of regimented. I can't remember the last time I just picked up a book on a whim. Because I have my TBRs, I'm reading for read-alongs and readathons and running read-alongs, and I've got the new FOMO book club which is happening, and buddy reads that are scheduled 6 months in advance, and so my reading is very much sort of laid out for me month by month by month, and it leaves very much time for sort of free reading, which is a shame, and I need to get better at managing that myself. But my problem is I just want to do all the things all of the time. I want to do all of the things. So that is an issue with my personality, and I'm like that across all areas of my life, not just reading. So will it ever change? Probs not. So that has been a bit of a ranty sort of explanation of my journey as a reader over the years, and I'm going to tag a few people. I know that Jack tagged quite a few, so I have tried to choose people who Jack didn't tag, so people I would love to see do this because I just love their chat. Jennifer Loves Books, Bookish Gems, Bibbidi Bobbidi Books, Red Dot Reads, and Reading with a Vengeance. And all of these ladies are fantastic. If you haven't checked them out, you really should, because they are just brilliant, and I watch them regularly because I just love their content and their personalities, and so I would love to see how they have changed as readers over the years, and they're all quite different as well, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how different their answers are. And I think that is it. If you would like a short sweet video after this long rambling one, you can see my top 5 BookTube secrets video here, which is very short and should hopefully make you laugh. Okay, cheers guys, bye.